Contemptuous world, embrace the breath of extinction!
How heavy is that? Light work with the bass on the track, on my feet to the back like I'm taking a slap. I need a drink, but it's straight from the tap. And I'm hating the slack, couple miles around.
Hey YouTube, welcome back to another video. So today we're going to be covering a very hyper, very excited, happy to be here character.
Did you call for me?
I absolutely did, Ray. So we're going to do this character breakdown a little bit differently. I've been talking to Shiro, say hi Shiro, and he's come up with an interesting idea. We are going to be breaking up the character breakdowns actually into two parts. The first part, I'm going to be going over the character's kit altogether, and then the second part is going to be me showing them off in whatever content I deem them worthy for what they shine in. For example, I'm going to be using Rey in PvE, and I'm not really going to be showing her off in PvP right now because PvP is a very, very dark and evil place, ruled by none other than the new Gnoella. Gnoella is making PvP very toxic and very hard to do anything unless you have Gnoella yourself. And so I'm really going to be showing Rey off in PvE because I feel like that's where a lot of people are going to be using her. And I also think that's where she's really going to shine. I think she's very good for like World Boss. I think she could do World Boss absolutely phenomenally. Guild raids or guild bosses, she's going to do great. Joint challenges, I think she's going to do phenomenally. And if you are struggling with any of the water bosses, do not be afraid to use her. She will make them regret everything that they've ever done. But you'll have to wait for part 2 for that. And if I remember how to do it, and if Shiro knows how to do it, maybe he'll let me know. At the end, hopefully we'll have a link to the second part, or maybe I'll leave the link to the second part in the description. That way you can just easily go to it. If it's not in the little corner in the top right with the little white eye to bring you to the little menu, it will be in the description, one of the two. I'm not sure how to do the little pop.
Oh, my partner's favorite item. What do I do?
I don't know what you're going to do, Ray. But please, calm down. But without further ado, this is Rey. So Rey has some very unique skills. She has a very cool kit. I think personally she's really, really cool. Her S1 attacks an enemy. When it's her turn, she gains 2 natural talents, which is her unique resource. Most of the time you'll start with 1 until you can get it to that level 4. Really hit that level 4 for this one. It's really going to help you build up for your later skills. Her S2, Pulse Release. Attacks an enemy when it is the caster's turn, she gets 2 natural talents. Again, you get this to level 5, she's going to get 2 natural talents. You're going to start with 1 until you get to that level 5. This skill just passively ignores the defense of water or healer enemies by 30%. So if it's a water element or a healer, you're just going to melt through them. Their defense is basically going to be like they have a defensive debuff on. It is super nice, and it stacks with the defensive debuff, so you can do even more damage. I think with this 30% reduction, plus the natural defense reduction, I think the defense reduction is 50%. It doesn't work as though it would be 80%. It is like, I think it takes whatever the biggest one is, because it's the actual debuff. So then their defense will be in half, and then you take 30% of that 50, so it would actually be 15%, or yeah, you'd actually be cutting 15%, so you would actually be leaving them with 35% of their defense if they have a defensive buff as well, because you're losing the 50 from the debuff, and then she passively ignores 30%, but if they're already at half, you're actually realistically only going to be losing 15%. Calm down, Rey. Jesus Christ, calm down. So you'll actually be leaving them with 35. But honestly, being able to take like a water tank, like Veronica will get absolutely melted by Rey here. Veronica gets obliterated. Any healer gets absolutely obliterated. The cool thing too is this is also her burst skill. So it being her burst skill, she can, at level 1, it increases damage and reduces the cooldown of it by 2 turns, which allows you to do it again. So she can basically be popping her burst 1 every single turn as long as you have the AP for it, which is super cool. At level 2, it just does a little extra weakness gauge damage, which isn't bad. And then at level 3, it changes to the enhanced skill and expands attack range. So I believe that's going to hit all of them and then resets the skill cooldown of Faster Than Bullets, which is her S3. Now that we mentioned the S3, let's get into that one. So her S3 attacks an enemy and gains an extra turn. So you can S3 back into your S2, and if you have her maxed out, you can burst 3 and reset the cooldown of this again. And then you can use this to reset the... You basically can bounce back and forth between these two as long as you have enough AP. Because remember, when you're using a burst skill, burst level 3, chain points are generated proportional to the amount of consumed action points, but when using a burst level 2 or 3, the effects of all preceding levels are applied as well. So when you're using pulse release at level 3, you are getting the enhanced skill that attacks everything, resetting your S3, but you're also reducing the cooldown of her S2 so she can do it again. So you can literally do S3, S2, burst 3, then your next turn, S3, S2, burst 3, and you can just bounce back and forth as many times as you want. And this is the really nice part. Water or healer enemies killed by this skill cannot be resurrected or revived. So another way to shut down those reses from Mene and Nella, which is super helpful to have in a PvP setting. And even with PvE, sometimes like some of the bosses will continue to revive their allies. I can already think of, it's a tower level towards the top. I think it's like 96, I want to say. But I think it's Seirun, and Seirun keeps bringing everybody back. And you kill Seirun by killing the 3 party members. By using this, you can basically eliminate them, because I know one of them is water. I don't know about the other ones. But you can use this and stop that resurrection altogether, which is super cool.
My partner's favorite item.
Okay. And then again, consumes all to fully recover skill cooldown of Faster Than Bullets and ignores the target's defense by 30%. But this has to have 5 natural talents to fully recover the skill cooldown. But you always get that extra turn, which is why this is so helpful in Burst 3, because then it resets the cooldown of this. So you can really just go back and forth. She is a chain starter, reducing the skill cooldowns of all allies by 1, which is super nice. It allows you to keep going with those abilities, and you can just keep popping these as long as you have the AP for it. In my personal opinion, there are 2 different ways to build her. There is the way that I built her, and then there is another way that I think is just as good, but slightly different for different scenarios. So I'm using her with her speed gear currently, and this is mediocre gear. This is not like, these are not optimized gear sets. These are just thrown together half-assed gear. I haven't really applied a lot of my resources to building her because I'm currently focusing on building my strong PvP defense team, so I can quit ranking down all the time because my defense sucks. So I'm focusing on that right now. But you can get by with pretty mediocre gear. Just try to make sure you get some extra speed and attack. That's really what you're looking for, and any kind of crit chance is super helpful. I'm using Surefire Javelin right now. Increases damage dealt by 2% of the target's max health when attacking a single target. We are going to take a quick look. For her weapon, we have obviously the Surefire Javelin. You have the Twin B. The Twin B wouldn't be too bad if you have a really good roll. Violent Sledgehammer wouldn't be too bad either. Especially if you're going to be playing in like PvP. PvP, Violent Sledgehammer isn't going to be too bad, especially if you can keep her alive. But if you're struggling to keep her alive, I would just skip it and I would use something else. Snow White Embrace isn't too bad, especially if you're able to keep her at max health all the time. That 20% extra damage could go a long way. Phantom Necrosis, I do not recommend this. This is probably my least favorite thing. I don't like Phantom Necrosis, and I like playing tanky, slow characters, and I do not like Phantom Necrosis. So I would use Surefire Javelin for PvE, and then for PvP, I'd probably use Snow White Embrace, if I'm being honest. As long as you're able to get her first. If you're able to outspeed a lot, Snow White Embrace. If you're not, Surefire Javelin's still not bad. Twin B isn't too bad either, especially if you're going to be able to stack those skills all the time. Twin B is going to proc Mind's Eye a lot because performing an action, if you're using 2 turns, most of the time it would take you 10 turns to get the full effect of Mind's Eye. For her, if you're going back and forth between your S2 and your S3 all the time, it will take you 5 turns instead. So it cuts it down in half because you're using double the turns. Realistically, if I were to pick this one, if realistically this is the one you want, damage dealt increases by 15%, excluding critical hits. Because I'm building speed, I'm not really building into critical hits all that much. So Glorious Radiance Orb isn't too bad if I'm not going to be too worried about critting. But if you are going to be worried about critting, Death's Hold. Death's Hold isn't too bad because you're going to be increasing that penetration. It's going to be super helpful for any kind of hard boss, like world boss, that kind of thing. Prima Vista, not good. Again, Glorious Radiance Orb if you're not worried about critical hit. The other gear set I was mentioning before that you could realistically use for Rey here is if you wanted to use the critical hit gear set. You could use the critical hit gear set just to be able to guarantee those crit hits every single time, because she does benefit pretty well from those crits. But you don't necessarily need to if you don't really want to. Like, I'm building her speed, and I'm going to show you guys in the next video, like I said before, how speed geared works, and I have the team set up and everything, and we're going to get right into that. So, without further ado, I hope you found this somewhat informative to kind of understand how we're going to be building her, how we're going to be moving forward with her. And now the next video is going to be me showing you guys her in PvE content, because fuck PvP right now, because no G.Nella is absolutely destroying it, and little Rey does not have a chance against that Archdemon. So, without further ado, I'll catch you guys in the next one. See ya.